when I talk about the issue of race in the United States, I like to start by saying that I wasn't born here. That as a result of me not being born here, there are many other things that help me identify with my blackness beyond the American story.
As I filled out the paperwork, I was forced to answer a question that I had never answered in my life. The question asked my race. And so I telephoned my mom back to Nairobi and asked her whether my light-skinned complexion made me white.
And obviously, a lot of spaces that I step in, I identify myself as African American. But I tell myself every time I'm in these spaces and I'm identified that I'm taking a story from someone else's story. Because it's not my story. Because my story is rich with childhood memories of my father and grandfather and my language. My story is rich with poverty, but yet happiness. My story is rich with colonialism and new colonialism and the toxicity of that. But at the same time, it's rich with stories about our ancestors and the things that they did. And these things are not things that I read in a book. These are stories that have bounded our community for many years. And so for me to come to a country that views blackness from only one angle and one angle only, which is their skin color, it's a confusion. Because that's not who I am. That's not who I've ever been. That's not how I've ever been defined. But that doesn't mean that when story like what happened in Minneapolis happened, it doesn't impact me. Actually, it does. It does in many ways. How does it impact me, you might ask? One of it is that all of a sudden I've realized that there is a way I have to deal with police officers. I've also realized that there's a way I can relate to the violence that my African American brothers experience in the United States with the violence we experience with the police in my own country. In our own country, the issue of race doesn't come up. We just think that the police are being crazy and stupid and just rude. But now when we think of it in terms of what I see happening here every day, then I realize they're not just doing that because they're rude or they're just bad apples, but because the inherent structure and system embodies this idea that one race or certain individuals are more privileged than the others. And so for me experiencing this, I remember very well last summer, I was teaching a class and being in a class with students of color and having them bring that burden to class, read that in their own story, in their own history, yet experience it themselves. For me, it got me to a place to say, and this is again coming from a place of privilege and positionality, that I don't want my son to experience this. I don't want my child to be the one to carry the trauma of a nation that has refused to heal its own trauma. I want my child free. I want my child to grow up knowing his name and where he went to school and what his father did. And I want him to know that although the structure was oppressive, his dignity, who he is and what he can achieve in this world is not based on the whims of another individual. It is based on his ability to not only further his goals, but also the support he will get from his community, people like him. I want him to learn that history from that duality, that he is loved, that he is appreciated, that he is respected, that he carries with him the blood and life of generations. I don't want him to only learn about his oppression, because what his oppression does is, one, it traumatizes him, and two, it makes him believe that he can never overcome it.